Imagine walking away from the greatest team in the world. A team winning trophies, breaking records, playing football that felt almost perfect. Not because you failed, not because you were pushed out, not because the fans stopped loving you, but because deep down you wanted to prove something to the world. That you were more than just a superstar teammate, more than a supporting act. That you could step out of the shadow beside you and become football's main character. In 2017, Neymar made a decision worth €222 million, the most expensive transfer in football history. A move so shocking it changed the transfer market forever. Some called it courage, others called it ego, many called it betrayal. But years later, one question still divides football fans across generations. Did Neymar chase greatness or run away from it? And more importantly, did that single decision rewrite how football will remember him forever? Let's rewind the story to the beginning of a legacy shaped by one choice. Before Paris, before controversy, before injuries, criticism, and endless debates, there was simply a boy from Santos, a skinny kid with fearless confidence, playing football on dusty streets where creativity mattered more than tactics. Neymar da Silva Santos Jr. didn't just learn football. He felt it. From the very beginning, there was something different about him. Not just talent, energy, joy, unpredictability. Watching Neymar felt like watching improvisation, like he was inventing moves in real time. Every touch carried risk. Every dribble carried personality. Every match felt like a performance. Brazil had produced legends before: Pelé, Romario, Ronaldo, Ronaldinho. But after years of waiting, fans finally believed they had found the next symbol of Brazilian football. And Neymar embraced that expectation without fear. At Santos FC, the same club where Pelé became immortal, Neymar turned ordinary league games into global events. Stadiums filled hours before kickoff. Defenders didn't just try to stop him, they tried to survive him. Stepovers, flicks, impossible angles. He played with the freedom of street football and the confidence of a superstar already aware of his destiny. Crowds didn't just come to watch Santos win. They came waiting for magic. And more often than not, Neymar delivered. Goals piled up. Highlights went viral across the world. Sponsors arrived. Fans copied his hairstyle, his celebrations, even his swagger. He wasn't just a footballer anymore. He was becoming a cultural phenomenon. Europe noticed quickly. Scouts followed every match. Highlights spread across television and early social media like wildfire. Soon, the biggest clubs in the world began circling. Real Madrid wanted him as their next Galactico. Barcelona saw him as the future of their attack. The football world watched a young superstar standing at a crossroads. Two giants, two different destinies, one decision. And when Neymar finally chose Barcelona, it felt like the perfect footballing fairy tale. But hidden inside that choice was the beginning of a conflict that would quietly shape his entire career. Because joining greatness is one thing, finding your identity inside it is another. When Neymar arrived in Barcelona in 2013, the pressure was immediate. This wasn't Santos anymore. This was Camp Nou, a stadium where greatness wasn't celebrated, it was expected. And waiting for him was a player already redefining football itself: Lionel Messi. At first, many wondered if Neymar could survive in Messi's world. Would there be rivalry, jealousy, a battle for spotlight? But something unexpected happened. Instead of conflict, chemistry was born. Then, in 2014, Luis Suárez arrived. And suddenly, football witnessed the creation of something rare. Not just a front three, a phenomenon. MSN, Messi, Suárez, Neymar, each player different, each player perfect for the other. Messi was the genius, calm, calculating, inevitable. Suárez was chaos, aggressive, relentless, always hunting. And Neymar was imagination, the spark, the unpredictability defenders could never prepare for. They didn't compete for goals. They created them for each other. No ego wars, no visible hierarchy, just understanding. You could see it in the smiles, the celebrations, the effortless passes played without even looking. Football suddenly looked easy again, beautiful again. During the 2014 to 2015 season, Barcelona became unstoppable. Defenses collapsed under constant pressure. Opponents didn't know who to mark. Stop Messi, Neymar punished you. Stop Neymar, Suárez finished the job. It felt less like tactics and more like art performed at full speed. And in the Champions League, the trio reached another level. Big games didn't scare them. They enjoyed them. Neymar scored crucial goals throughout the knockout stages. He wasn't hiding behind Messi's brilliance. He was adding to it. Then came the final in Berlin against Juventus. Under the brightest lights in club football, Neymar scored again, sealing Barcelona's victory and completing a historic treble. At just 23 years old, he had conquered Europe. Trophies, fame, global recognition, everything a young footballer could dream of. From the outside, life looked perfect. But football careers are rarely defined by what the world sees, because success can sometimes create a quiet question inside a player's mind. A question that grows louder with every victory. Yes, Neymar was winning. Yes, he was loved. But there was one thing he still wasn't: the main face of the team. Because no matter how brilliant he played, Barcelona still belonged to Messi. And slowly, almost invisibly, that reality began to matter more than anyone realized. Success can be complicated. From the outside, Neymar's life looked perfect. Champions League winner, global superstar, playing in the greatest attacking trio football had ever seen. Millions of players dreamed of living his reality. But football isn't only played on the pitch. It's also played in the mind. And slowly, a question began to follow Neymar everywhere. Who was he without Messi? Every season followed the same pattern. Barcelona won trophies. MSN dominated headlines. Fans celebrated magic every weekend. But when individual awards arrived, the Ballon d'Or nights that defined football eras, the conversation never changed. Messi, Ronaldo, then everyone else. Neymar finished third. Again, and again, and again. Third best in the world sounds extraordinary. But for someone raised as Brazil's next football king, it felt like unfinished destiny. Because Neymar wasn't taught to be a supporting character. In Brazil, he was the star, the hope, the future. Yet in Barcelona, no matter how brilliant he played, there was an invisible ceiling. Messi wasn't just a teammate. He was an institution. The system revolved around him. The fans adored him. The club belonged to him. And Neymar understood something very few people admitted out loud. As long as Messi stayed, he would never truly step out of that shadow. You could see moments of frustration. Games where Neymar tried to take control alone. Moments of individual brilliance mixed with visible urgency, as if he was trying to prove something beyond winning matches. Not to critics, not to fans, but to himself. Then came a night that changed everything. A match that didn't just rewrite football history. It rewrote Neymar's belief in who he could become. Barcelona versus Paris Saint-Germain. Champions League round of 16. First leg, PSG 4. Barcelona 0. An impossible mountain, or so the world believed. But what happened next would become the turning point of Neymar's career, and possibly the beginning of the decision that changed his legacy forever. March 8th, 2017. Camp Nou. A night that began with hope, but very little belief. Barcelona had lost the first leg in Paris 4-0. No team in Champions League history had ever overturned a deficit like that. Pundits called it impossible. Fans came to the stadium more out of loyalty than expectation. Even neutral viewers tuned in simply to watch how Barcelona would exit the competition. And for most of the match, reality seemed unchanged. Barcelona scored early, then another. The crowd started dreaming, but time kept moving. Minutes disappeared, and with less than 10 minutes left, Barcelona still needed 3 goals. 3. In the Champions League. Against PSG. It was over, or at least it should have been. Then Neymar decided it wasn't. In the 88th minute, he stepped over a free kick. Pressure everywhere. The stadium silent for a split second. He struck the ball perfectly. Goal. Hope returned. But hope wasn't enough. Barcelona still needed 2 more. Moments later, Neymar picked up the ball again. Penalty. No hesitation. No fear. Goal. Now the impossible felt possible. The stadium transformed into chaos. PSG panicked. Barcelona believed. And then deep into stoppage time, Neymar received the ball one last time. Instead of shooting for glory, he lifted a delicate pass into the box. Sergi Roberto stretched. Contact. Goal. 6-1. History. The greatest comeback football had ever seen. Players collapsed. Fans cried. Commentators lost their voices. But something else happened that night, something quieter, yet far more important. For the first time at Barcelona, Neymar wasn't following Messi's story. He was leading it. Messi celebrated, but the night belonged to Neymar. Headlines around the world said the same thing. Neymar carried Barcelona, and maybe in that moment a realization formed. A dangerous realization. If he could lead a miracle like this, why couldn't he lead his own team? Why couldn't he become football's undisputed #1? Within months, the football world would get its answer. Because shortly after the greatest night of his Barcelona career, Neymar made the most shocking decision football had ever seen. The summer of 2017 felt normal at first. Transfer rumors filled headlines, as they always did. Big names moving, big money being discussed. But no one, absolutely no one, expected what was about to happen. Then whispers began. Paris Saint-Germain wanted Neymar. At first, it sounded impossible. Why would Barcelona sell one of the best players in the world? They wouldn't, unless someone paid the release clause. €222 million. A number so unreal, it didn't feel serious. Until PSG decided to pay it. Football stopped. Fans refreshed news feeds every minute. Players reacted with disbelief. Even Barcelona's dressing room struggled to understand what was happening. Neymar leaving. At his peak. After the greatest comeback in history. It didn't make sense. Unless you understood what Neymar truly wanted. This wasn't just a transfer. It was independence. At Barcelona, he shared greatness. At PSG, he would own it. No Messi. No shadow. No ceiling. Paris promised something Barcelona never could. A team built around him. The main penalty taker. The creative center. The global face of the project. And most importantly, a clear path toward the Ballon d'Or. When the transfer became official, football entered a new era overnight. €222 million didn't just break a record. It shattered the market. Suddenly, every player had a new price. Every club felt pressure. Football economics changed forever. But alongside excitement came criticism. Some fans called it ambition. Others called it greed. Former players questioned the timing. Why leave a winning machine? Why abandon history already being written? Was Neymar chasing greatness? Or running from comparison? The truth was more human than people admitted. He wanted to prove he could lead. To step into a story that belonged entirely to him. And for the first time in his career, Neymar carried not just expectations, but an entire project on his shoulders. Paris welcomed him like royalty. Lights flashed. Crowds roared. The Prince of Brazil had arrived to become King of Paris. But football has a cruel habit. The moment pressure becomes absolute, the game changes. Because being the star isn't just about freedom. It's about responsibility. And soon, Neymar would discover that creating your own legacy is far harder than joining one. At first, everything looked exactly as planned. Neymar arrived in Paris like a superstar entering his own kingdom. Packed stadiums, standing ovations, a league ready to revolve around him. From his very first matches, the difference in level was obvious. He scored freely, assisted effortlessly. Defenders struggled to contain him. In League One, Neymar looked unstoppable. For a moment, it seemed the gamble had worked. He was finally the center of football's attention, the main character. But greatness is rarely judged in domestic dominance. In Paris, there was only one true mission: the Champions League. That was why PSG spent millions. That was why Neymar was signed. Not to win France, to conquer Europe. And that's where the story began to change. Because just as expectations reached their highest point, injuries arrived. A broken foot, then another setback. Then another season interrupted at the worst possible moment. Knockout stages approached. Fans waited, and Neymar watched from the sidelines. Again and again, each absence added pressure. Each missed Champions League night changed public perception. Slowly, the narrative shifted. From admiration to questioning. Was Neymar unlucky or unfocused? Critics pointed to birthday parties, fashion events, celebrity lifestyle headlines. Fair or unfair, football history rarely separates performance from perception. Meanwhile, across Europe, Messi continued rewriting records. Ronaldo kept winning decisive matches. The era moved forward, relentlessly. And Neymar, once seen as the inevitable successor, suddenly felt stuck between two identities. Too successful to be called a failure, too incomplete to be called the best. It became one of football's most frustrating paradoxes. A player capable of brilliance every time he touched the ball, yet unable to control the moments that defined legacy. Because football doesn't only remember how good you were, it remembers when you were there. And when the biggest nights arrived, Neymar was too often missing, not by choice, but by circumstance. The question grew louder every season. Had the move to PSG elevated him, or trapped him in expectations impossible to satisfy? And slowly, a new conversation began across football fans worldwide. Not about Neymar's talent, but about his legacy. Here's the uncomfortable truth about Neymar Jr. Talent was never the problem. Ask defenders who faced him. Ask teammates who trained with him. Many quietly admit the same thing. Neymar might be the most naturally gifted player of his generation. The balance, the creativity, the improvisation. He played football like a street artist performing on the biggest stage in the world. So why does his career feel unfinished to some fans? Because football doesn't judge players only by ability. It judges them by moments, the moments that define eras. Messi had Barcelona. Ronaldo had Madrid. Icons are remembered for periods where football clearly belonged to them. For Neymar, that era never fully arrived. At Barcelona, he was part of history, but not its center. At PSG, he was meant to create history, but circumstances kept interrupting the story. Injuries, team instability, changing managers, growing criticism, and slowly, public opinion divided into two camps. One side saw a misunderstood genius, a player judged too harshly in an era dominated by two once-in-a-century legends. The other saw unrealized potential, a superstar who left football immortality behind in search of individual recognition. And that debate still lives today. What defines greatness? Loyalty to success, or courage to chase independence? Imagine leaving a championship team at work to start your own company. If it succeeds, you're visionary. If it struggles, people call it a mistake. The same decision, two completely different legacies. That's Neymar's story. Because every time fans compare careers, the same question returns. What if he stayed at Barcelona? More Champions Leagues, a Ballon d'Or someday, a dynasty remembered forever. We'll never know. And sometimes, the greatest weight on an athlete isn't failure. It's the endless possibility of what might have been. Which leads us back to the decision itself. The moment that split Neymar's story into two versions. Before and after. Years have passed since that summer in 2017. The headlines faded. The transfer fee is no longer shocking. Football moved on. But Neymar's decision never truly left the conversation. Today, fans see two different versions of the same player. The Barcelona Neymar. Joyful, fearless, playing with freedom. A player smiling through matches, combining effortlessly with Messi and Suárez, winning while entertaining the world. And then the Paris Neymar. Still brilliant, still capable of magic, but carrying weight, expectations, pressure, injuries, debate. Two chapters of one career, separated by a single choice. And maybe that's why Neymar's story feels so human. Because he didn't choose the safe path. He didn't stay where success was guaranteed. He chose risk. He chose identity. He chose to discover who he was without the protection of greatness around him. And not every bold decision ends with universal praise. Sometimes ambition comes with sacrifice. Sometimes chasing your own story means leaving behind the version of history people expected for you. So was Neymar wrong? Or was he simply brave enough to gamble on himself? Because legacy in football isn't only about trophies. It's about moments, narratives, and the questions that remain long after the final whistle. And Neymar's career leaves us with one of football's greatest what-ifs. What if he stayed? What if injuries never came? What if timing had been kinder? We may never agree on the answers. But one thing is certain. Few decisions in football history have changed a player's legacy, and the sport itself, quite like Neymar's. Football history isn't written only by trophies. It's written by decisions. And Neymar made one of the boldest decisions any superstar has ever made. Maybe he sacrificed individual glory. Maybe he changed football economics forever. Or maybe he simply proved that even legends gamble on themselves. Now I want to hear from you. Did Neymar's move to PSG improve his legacy or damage it forever? Drop your opinion in the comments. If you love deep football stories like this, hit like, subscribe to Iconic Era Football, and turn on notifications, because the next story might completely change how you see football history. And remember, every era has icons, but only a few decisions define them forever. Thanks for watching. See you in the next era. Bye.